Hello, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. James Douglas, GP here in Fort William for 40 years. I've also got 25 years experience with a special interest in occupational health. I published research papers in occupational asthma which involve measuring respirable aerosol in a local factory. I've also published 20 years ago a paper on nasal swab PCR method as a method of diagnosing flu. So therefore I've become rather interested recently in personal protection for frontline community staff while assessing COVID-19 patients. Now, the debate about personal protective equipment continues. What I would suggest my colleagues do is go back to the source documents on respiratory protection, and there's a paper that you can download from the Health and Safety Executive website titled Evaluating the Protection Afforded by Surgical Face Masks Against Influenza Bioaerosols, reference number RR619 from the Health and Safety Executive website. But what that document showed was that if you use a surgical face mask, then it provides a 6-fold reduction in exposure, whereas if you use a PPE3 method of reducing exposure, it gives you a 100-fold reduction in exposure. So first of all, let's just look at the surgical face mask. So the surgical face mask this is a wet surgical face mask. It has a little clip that you can put onto your nose there, and you can tie it above your head and round there, and it will give you some protection, a 6-fold protection, but you're still breathing in through the side here even once you've tied it, and there's a problem when you're tying it without a surgical cap that it'll get tangled in your hair, which makes the whole complication of donning and doffing PPE a little bit difficult. Now, locally we've been asking industry to help us with donations of respiratory PPE because there's the national supply difficulties. And broadly speaking, PPE falls into 3 categories. The first and lowest level of PPE for respiratory protection is a PP1 mask, which is the ordinary dust mask that you might do if you're sanding wood and it's producing dust that you can actually see lying around you, and it will block that big dust that you can see. However, the dangerous dust or dangerous particles are the ones that you can't see, because these are the respirable size of aerosol droplets, less than 5 microns, which will potentially go deep down into your lungs, past your nasal mucosa, past your tonsils, and get direct to bronchi level. Think of how asthma inhalers work. They're designed to get to bronchi level, and this is so potentially aerosols are particles that are designed to get deep down into your lungs. And obviously we don't want COVID-19 particles deep down in our lungs. The second level of protection is a PP2 mask. Now, if these things are being handed into by local industry, then they'll probably come with a box. So if you look on the box, if it says FP2, that degree gives you a certain level of protection. As you see, it's different from the surgical mask in that it's got a bendy thing here. You can put it onto your head like this, and then up onto your face, and then up like that. One advantage is that it's not getting tangled in your hair. All your breathing is being done through this bit here, and you're exhaling through the mask, through the valve at the front. The slightly lower standard of PP2 is better than a surgical mask for respiratory protection, but it doesn't completely seal roundabout. It's certainly better, but it's not quite the spec of the next level up. So that is certainly better than a surgical mask. The next level is a PPE3 type mask. This has got a much better seal round about the face bit here. It'll say on the box or the packet, and it'll say on the front of the mask that it's PPE3 grade. That then produces a seal round about your face, and you're breathing in through the fibre bit, and you're breathing out through the valve. Now, there's the question about fit testing, which will always come up in these situations. Now, fit testing is just making sure that you've got a direct seal, and I'll ask my colleague in a minute just to cover fit testing for these sorts of masks. The next sort of mask is a reusable mask. So these are obviously disposable masks, but I think potentially, rather than throwing them in limited supply away after each patient, then probably people could be using these for a complete shift. Or perhaps, I think as Neil will explain, maybe you can have a batch of them and cycle them on day, leaving them 3 days for the particles to degrade after some degree of cleaning. The next thing are recyclable masks. and this is a PPE 3 grade respirator, which is available, well, not available now with difficulty, but the key thing about this is that it's on your mask, it's on your face, it's providing a complete fit. It's got filters on it which you breathe in through here, which fit on the side. And the great thing about this particular design, it's got a do-it-yourself fit test in it. Not all of them have that, but this particular sort has a do-it-yourself fit test in it. Where what you do is you put it on your face and you close and you know that it's fitted onto your face. Okay, so again, you're breathing in through the white bit, exhaling through here, and this is all completely cleanable on a daily basis. When you are doing PPE like this, reusable PPE, and recycling it, you've got to have a personal cleaning regime. So what I would suggest is a simple bucket method. So what we've done in my practice is that we've got all these cheap plastic buckets from the local hardware store, and we have dirty ones and we have clean ones. So once you're doffing and taking off your PPE, you put it into a dirty bucket, lay it aside until you've got everything else off, and then at a later point you'd put new gloves, new apron on, and you would clean the mask again and put it clean for the next person. When the next person comes on shift, if you are sharing the mask, it is their responsibility to clean it all over again to their standard. So this whole question about, well, what about transferring germs from one to the other, the next person on shift has to start all over again, so it's double cleaned. That is the method, and you've got to have systems of boxes and so on to make sure that's correct. I'd like to hand over to Neil, my colleague.
Hi, so my name's Neil McLean. I'm the director of a company. We get involved in hazardous materials that are potentially dangerous to health. So as following the HSE guidelines, we use PPE 3 masks as a bare minimum in our work, and we'll tend to use a lot of these, which is a half face mask, and they'll offer PPE 3 level protection, but in a reusable form. So this mask, again, as shown before, you can take the filters off and replace them, and then sterilise and clean this section. Now, one of these masks in a really dirty environment that we work in, we're drilling rock, we've got a lot of silica dust particles in the air, we've got a lot of aerosol, so we use compressed air, which turns our drilling oil into an aerosol. We would use this for about a week. So potentially in a hospital setting, this could last for a month. And again, there's different types of these masks, so this is a different one again. Now this is actually a P2 filter that's on this, but behind this there's a charcoal filter, which is an A1 filter, which will strip atoms out, so it's basically a gas mask. But again, these offer far more protection than the standard P3 mask, and being reusable, they can be very much beneficial to the logistics and the shortage problem at the moment. So once a medic has this and they keep hold of it and care for it, as Dr. Douglas suggested, this could last for a very long time. Some of these masks have also got the ability to replace the particle filter on the outside. So I mean, you can see the size of that particle filter, and if you really had to make one, you could make one for yourself as well if you had the availability of the material. So we've also got this type of mask, which has got a double seal inside, so that's basically what the half mask looks like, and then it's got this face shield round the outside. Now for this particular scenario that the medics are facing, this type of mask is ideal for people who are going to be exposed to a lot of this aerosol, and it means that they can work comfortably. This is a very comfortable mask to wear. You can work for hours and hours at a time with it. You end up forgetting you've got it on, and that will give you a massive amount of protection, and you don't have to then have a face shield, and this is combined in one unit. And again, we've got the reusable filters, of which a lot are interchangeable, but I'll touch on filters in a second. So this is a similar type of full face mask as well. Again, same principles, but very, very effective and very nice to work in. These would be used in industry for a huge amount of different applications. So they could be used in dusty environments, and even, you know, a sawdust environment, right through to, you know, where you've potentially got gas and your filter would be able to handle gas. So all these types of masks are covered by HSE regulations, and they're very simple to use. Please don't be intimidated by them. If you just get a hold of the instructions and read them, they are very, very simple to operate, and you will figure it out. You'll become used to them, and they'll just become part of your daily routine. So if you have these masks in your stores, these are ideal for healthcare workers that are carrying out procedures that generate aerosol. If you have these anywhere, please consider donating them.
Okay, so these are the NHS use once and disposable goggles, which come in. They come in a pack where you have to make them up. When you put them on, they provide some degree of protection. They're quite light on the face, which is fine. But the trouble is, when you bend down, there's a risk, because they're swinging around your face, that you're going to touch your face like that. The other problem is that if you're wearing glasses, that makes that risk a little bit more prominent. So you're wearing these on top of glasses, and generally they're going to be a little bit less secure. These ordinary industrial goggles are probably the best solution, because they form a seal round about your face, and that's enclosed by glasses, and it provides an enclosed protection round about here. And the great thing about these ones is that you can obviously pull this tight. The other great thing about these is that they're completely cleanable. So if you're washing that in soap and water mixed with chlorine type cleaning chemicals, then you're going to get rid of any norovirus even from these little breathing holes and so on, and rinse them out thoroughly. So that's potentially a reusable solution. So the disposable ones versus the reusable and cleaning solution.
So just going to go through eye protection that might be out in the community and in industry that's handy at the moment for the NHS. Believe it or not, these small glasses, not just the NHS, the police could use these. So if you've got a packet of these lying about, just give them into the local police station. Go up a level and we're into goggles, so obviously give a better amount of protection because they've got a seal around the outside, and, you know, in conjunction with a mask, starts to give a better level. So this mask is very common in industry. It's used for grinding and all sorts of stuff where there might be debris flying about, wood turning, the like. It's very, very handy in the medical setting at the moment because it will stop large droplets coming at somebody's face, and because it sits off your face, it doesn't steam up as easily. Now it has a weakness in that any aerosols can sneak round the sides, so it's always to be used in conjunction with a mask, and preferably an FFP3 mask or above.
Right, these are NHS gloves, which we all know and love. So obviously these are standard issue and we're all quite used to using them. When you start doing up into your PPE, then you're probably best going to be using probably a double gloving technique for donning and doffing. So if you are using a double gloving technique, you've got to put these on top, one on top of the other, which is fine. That gives you some degree of security. Another one of the industry donations, so these are nitrile gloves. These are vinyl gloves that the food industry use. You might find the double gloving technique is a little bit easier if you slip this one on top as an extra level of protection. So next to your skin you've got the nitrile glove, but then on top you've got a vinyl glove, and the reason for that is this is slightly easier for getting off for when you're doing your doffing.
So here we go, gloves. What we've got here is different types of gloves that potentially be used in industry that are handy. You've got this mechanics type gloves that they're a lot stronger than the medical type gloves, and they've got a dimple texture that makes them better for gripping. Now these might not be any use for people who are directly giving care to people, but these could be used by cleaners and other people who are going to be keeping the areas serviced. Now, another level of glove that would be very handy if you were doing cleaning operations is this type of glove. And again, all the information on this level of protections are covered by HSE legislation. Now this type of glove obviously it gives you a level of protection right up to your elbow. Maybe not as dexterous for doing medical procedures, but if you're having to clean areas, this is ideal. foot protection that we use in industry. So if we're going in and out of properties or anywhere else, we use these overshoes. Very, very simple disposable items, which if you have to go into an area where potentially somebody's been ill for a while, you would don these onto your feet and then dispose of them when you come out. They're a lot easier to dispose of than it would be to get rid of your footwear. Now the other things in industry that are going to be quite helpful during this are things like these specific wellies that are made for a fish processing plant. Now what these do is they raise up the protection for the staff that might be using cleaners that may be caustic, or the COSH guidelines will probably say that you need to be using something like this. So yeah, if any industries have large numbers of these, I would encourage that these are also donated. So cleaning products that we have in industry that will be helpful during this pandemic is simple stuff like multi-surface cleaners and wipes. And this is an antibacterial wipe, which is really handy in the community setting for going from house to house. So it can be used for door handles, steering wheels in cars, gear sticks in cars, handbrakes, and many different uses which you'll figure out along the way, but they're definitely something that's handy for industry to hand in to medical staff to have in their armoury against this virus. So in industry we tend to buy hand sanitation chemicals in large containers like this, and there's a lot of other places are buying them in smaller ones, so we tend to have quite a lot of this stuff on our shelves, and I would encourage people to hand it in. And even the small, if they're decanted into small containers like this is ideal for medical centre desk, or you know, wherever that's needed, they can then take it and we can distribute it.
The first thing I would suggest in PPE for community staff like GPs assessing COVID-19 patients is probably you should be converting to scrubs. I've been wearing these for the past week and I wish I'd done it 40 years ago. It's so much simpler. No shirts to iron in the morning, take them home at night, wash them and clean them, and change them on a daily basis. However, that's not going to be enough when you are going home. If you've been coughed and spluttered over by a COVID-19 patient, you really want something else on top of that. So I would suggest these simple disposable suits that you use for decorating, etc. The advantage of these is that they've got a hood, so then when you're putting your other stuff on, you're not getting, your hair is protected. When you're choosing these simple throwaway disposable things, which I would suggest you could use just for a whole shift because there's a limited supply, buy the size that's bigger than yourself, because when you come into the doffing stage of taking your PPE off, it's much better if you bought the bigger size and use the bigger size rather than what you would normally think of. These you can get, or we have been given, this particular one has come from a local salmon processing factory. So these things are available in industry, so although they're in short supply in building supplies, there will probably be food industries, etc., who have stores full of these sorts of things, and this is where you might get your supply of these disposable things. The next stage up, I'll hand over to Neil to talking about the more robust ones that you can clean. So Neil.
So the hazmat type suits that get used in industry for handling dangerous chemicals and powders and whatever, these are sort of, I would call them semi-disposable, so you could wash them and clean them down if you wanted to. In this situation I think you would probably want to think about that because of the availability of new stock. Now this type of suit here, which has got a double zip system and a folded seam at the front, it's completely waterproof and it's elasticated here so it fits nicely into the mask. This actually came from a hard rock quarry on the west coast of Scotland. This had been used for protection against silica dust, but again HSE guidelines and very strict testing regimes on these pieces of equipment, so they're very handy. Now the next level up again is the reusable suit. Now this came from a fish processing plant. It's a type of material that can be used again and again. It's got a double folded front that holds the zip in place. It's a impermeable material, so no material can get through. It's got an adjustable hood at the top as well. So for in a cleaning environment, or when you're going to be using some chemicals that would potentially be dangerous to your skin, this type of suit is ideal. It's also handy that this can be cleaned, so if you're in a community care environment and you wanted to go from house to house and you want to figure out a way to do that, or if you'd been in a house where you suspect you probably were exposed to the COVID virus, you can use your normal hand sanitizer to clean this down, soap and water, or a spray or a garden hose and soap and water, and it's far better doing that than using a normal fabric where it could get impregnated and then carried from house to house. Essentially, these could be disposable as well if you had enough of them. If you were really exposed and you weren't happy, you can take this outer layer off and then you can carry on your daily duties and put another one on.
I'd like to encourage GPs and community staff to collaborate with their local health and safety professionals who work from factories and various industries. They have stores full of personal protective equipment, which we've demonstrated today, which we found useful and we are already using for our GPs, our community staff and our dentists locally. They've helped us solve the current supply problem. Trust your local health and safety professional. They are a huge resource in your community. Please get in touch with them and they can help you.
So I would appeal to people in industry to look into their stores and look at the wonderful equipment we have and then try and get that through to the people at the front line fighting the COVID-19 virus. The equipment we use is very relevant in this position at the moment, and we can help to fill the gaps that are in the supply chain at the moment. I would appeal to the people who are going to be receiving this equipment, don't be intimidated by it. It's all got instruction manuals. Practice and practice and practice donning and doffing the equipment when you first receive it, and look at the longevity and how long this stuff can last you. I would push it to its limits at the moment. You're working in a nice clean environment. We're used to using this equipment in oily, dusty, chemically environments, so it's going to last for a long time. And if you get into a good routine and you get a good decontamination routine going, this stuff could last you for months.